She didn't flinch when she said it. Would you ever be open to a hall pass? Just once. That was the moment. The exact moment everything inside me went cold. Not broken. Not boiling. Just cold. Saturday morning. Quiet house. Pancakes I made, because she always pretends hers come out too rubbery. The kind of morning that looks like peace to people who've never lived in the slow death of being invisible. Her hair was still damp from the shower. My coffee was still too hot to sip. That's when she slid the mug across the table and dropped the grenade. Her voice all sugar and mischief, like she was asking if we should try a new brunch spot. I didn't ask who. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask what the hell she thought. Just once, even meant after 17 years and a mortgage we finally paid off last spring. I just looked at her. Not shocked. Not angry. Just done. If that's what you need, I said. Take it. She blinked, smiled nervously, tilted her head like she misheard me. I spooned some jam onto my toast. She kept staring. No, seriously, she said. Like, just hypothetically, if someone wanted a hall pass, you wouldn't lose it. I finally looked up. Hypothetically, I said, they should pack light. One weekend's all they'd get. She laughed again, but it didn't land this time. You're not even jealous? I shrugged. Would that help? There's something terrifying about a man who doesn't argue. And she felt it then. Some tiny thread of tension under her smirk. But it passed. Her ego caught it like a net. She told herself she was just married to a man too boring, too agreeable, too passive to care. She had no idea. Over 97% of people who listen to these stories never hit subscribe. And yet, that's what helps this channel keep building the kinds of stories you won't forget. So if this has your attention so far, go ahead, tap it. It means more than you know. Anyway, she got up and started cleaning the plates, like she hadn't just spit acid into the middle of our lives. She even kissed the top of my head as she passed behind me, like she was graciously offering me a weekend off from being her husband, like she expected me to say thank you. That night, she curled up next to me in bed and fell asleep fast, like women do when they think they've communicated, and the conversation is over. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft wheeze of the humidifier and counting ceiling fan rotations. At 2:11 a.m., I opened the Notes app on my phone and titled a new list, Departure Schedule. By breakfast the next day, she was back to normal. She wore the same cardigan she always wore when she wanted to seem extra charming. Soft yellow, with one loose button. That usually meant she was about to ask for something. A weekend away with the girls. A shopping splurge that was on sale anyway. This time it was both, and neither. So, I booked a spa weekend. Thursday through Sunday, she said, sipping from the mug I got her 5 anniversaries ago. By myself. Just need a little mental reset. I nodded. She waited for a reaction. Some hint of resistance. Maybe even a passive-aggressive comment. But there was nothing. I cut into my eggs and said, let me know if you want me to take the car in for a wash before you go. She blinked again, like a glitch in a machine that wasn't computing properly. Then she beamed. That would be amazing. Thank you. You're always so thoughtful. The cruelty of that line didn't even register to her. She left the table humming. Later that day, I watched her pack. She took the blue overnight bag, the one she used for yoga retreats and family funerals. She asked if I could pick up a new bottle of her serum while she was gone. I smiled, said I'd check. Then I watched her fold a lace bodysuit into the bottom of her suitcase when she thought I wasn't looking. I made a mental note. She packed it under her hiking gear. She called her sister, loudly, with the door open. No, it's just me this time, she laughed. Sometimes you just gotta disconnect, right? Right. By the time Thursday morning came, I had already contacted 2 lawyers. I had one appointment confirmed, another waiting for documents. I'd located our original joint trust forms. I knew which day she signed the amendment I pushed in under the guise of refinancing paperwork last year. I had it bookmarked and printed. She left with a wink. I kissed her cheek and said, enjoy your weekend. She said, don't miss me too much. I wouldn't. She stepped into the Uber with her bag and her delusions. I stood at the window until the car was out of sight. Then I turned, walked to the garage, pulled out the banker boxes I had labeled months ago, just in case. And I started packing her life into categories. Books, clothes, trinkets, photos, and the yellow cardigan. The one she wore when she needed something. This time it would be her turn to ask. And no, she wouldn't get it. The front door clicked shut behind her at 9:38 a.m. on Thursday. Not that I was timing it, of course. She dragged her suitcase across the front step with a little extra swing in her hips, like she thought she was starring in a skincare commercial. She winked through the tinted glass of the Uber and even did that little finger wave people do when they really want to be noticed leaving. I didn't wave back. Instead, I closed the door gently, turned the lock, and exhaled. Not sadness. Not even relief. Just clarity. The kind that doesn't announce itself with trumpets. The kind that settles in your bones like clean wind through an empty house. I made 3 calls before I even took off my jacket. The first was to a lawyer I'd met at a retirement seminar last fall. She specialized in quiet exits and airtight trust dissolutions. The kind that don't lead to courtrooms, just clean slates. The second was to a younger guy who handled asset restructuring. He had a background in corporate compliance and a side hustle helping men like me redistribute risk before anyone noticed. The third was to the locksmith. That one was fun. End of marriage special, he joked over the phone. I'll throw in rekeying the mailbox too. By noon, I'd pulled out every joint statement from our file drawer. Bank, brokerage, insurance. I didn't read them in detail. I already had the numbers memorized. I just needed the original account titles so I could highlight what had already been moved and what I had left to shift. Remember that refinance paperwork she signed last year? Buried in that was a trust revision. I'd spent weeks massaging the language to make it seem benign. It transferred all survivorship rights of the home to me and gave me full control over liquidation events tied to separation. She never questioned it. She never even read it. She said, "You always handle the boring stuff so well." Yes, I do. By 3 p.m., the guest room had transformed into something between a museum archive and an eviction notice with manners. I'd laid out 6 large bins, each with a neatly typed label. Bin 1, winter clothes. Bin 2, shoes and accessories. Bin 3, sentimental items. This one was generous. Mostly photo frames and a few letters she never reread. Bin 4, books she never finished but liked to display. Bin 5, toiletries and hair products. Bin 6, miscellaneous, her mug, her yoga strap, the ceramic llama from Sedona. The boxes were lined with tissue paper. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just didn't want to give her any room to accuse me of messiness or spite. I wanted the scene to look like a well-run estate sale, except nothing was for sale, and the estate had already decided who stayed. Friday morning, the locksmith arrived. Quiet guy, moved fast. I gave him the keys and a fresh cylinder for the deadbolt. He replaced it, tested it, and handed me a new set. "Wife away?" he asked casually. "Something like that," I said. He nodded, wiped his hands, and left without small talk. I appreciated that. After lunch, I called the vet. Had the microchip registry for the dog updated to my name only. I used the divorce clause already baked into the ownership agreement from when we adopted her. I also switched the autopay for the dog's insurance to my card. Small things. Clean seams. I took the safe key out from my tool cabinet and unlocked it one last time. I removed the backup passport, the marriage license, and the antique ring I'd inherited from my mother, which I'd offered her once, and she declined because it looked too old-fashioned. I left her passport, the birth certificates, and a small envelope of family photos she might want. The rest? Shredded or burned. By Friday at 5:47 p.m., I sat in the living room with a glass of bourbon and a steak I had no intention of finishing. The silence in the house wasn't hollow. It was precise. Every clock ticked on cue. The porch light flicked on at exactly 6. The thermostat adjusted for evening. Nothing was out of place. Except her. Somewhere, she was unzipping that lace bodysuit under the soft light of a spa resort suite, giggling into someone's chest hair, thinking she had permission to be reckless. And technically, she did. That was the genius of it. She asked, and I agreed. So what could she possibly accuse me of? Being too agreeable? I walked upstairs and glanced into the guest room one more time. The bins stood there like silent jurors. Neutral. Unapologetic. Ready. Then I took her favorite mug, the white one with the faded good vibes only print, and placed it gently on top of the final box. She always said I never noticed details. She had no idea how wrong she was. The first sign that something was off, really off, was that the porch light wasn't on. She hated that. "It's just basic safety," she always said. Like I'd forget how electricity worked without her reminding me. The porch light was her ritual, like applying lip balm before bed or checking the thermostat 3 times. It was always on. Except now it wasn't. She stepped out of the Uber wearing that smug little half-smile. Lips still glossy, hair tousled just enough to look unintentional. "Thanks," she chirped to the driver, yanking her suitcase out like she expected applause for packing light. She didn't even notice the driver watching her as she turned toward the door, humming some pop melody under her breath like she was returning from a yoga retreat. Not a betrayal. That's when her key hit the lock. Click. Nothing. Click again. Harder this time. Then slowly, the sound of her humming stopping. She frowned, tilted her head, tried again. Still nothing. "Are you kidding me?" she muttered under her breath. She glanced at her phone, annoyed, probably thinking she'd text me to open up like I was her doorman. Then the door creaked open, but not by her hand, just a crack, enough for her to see inside. And what she saw made her forget the key entirely. There, in the entryway, every box, every item, every trace of her life in this house, neatly stacked like outgoing mail. The same tissue-lined bins she used to pack Christmas ornaments and wedding gifts. Except now, they were filled with things she never thought she'd need to carry out. On top of the tallest stack sat a plain envelope. No wax seal, no drama, just her first name in my handwriting. The same handwriting that had once filled birthday cards and anniversary notes. The same handwriting that had carefully addressed the envelope to the DMV when we registered the car in both our names. Only this time, just her name. No greeting. No love. Just Kara. She didn't move for a moment. The wind pushed a dead leaf across the welcome mat. Ironic, given that she wasn't welcome anymore. The Uber driver called out, "Ma'am, do you still need me to wait?" She waved him off without turning around. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the envelope. The flap had already been loosened. I wanted her to open it quickly. No dramatic tearing. Just inevitability. Inside, a notarized separation notice, backdated to the Friday she left. A single-page summary of wire transfers, each one pulling funds from accounts she hadn't logged into since she let me handle the money stuff. A printout of the trust amendment she signed last November, the one she initialed between mouthfuls of takeout while watching a baking show, without reading a word. And on the final page, typed in bold above the signature line, "As requested, you are now free." She stood frozen, envelope shaking slightly in her hands. Then she called me. 3 times. All 3 went to voicemail. She left one message. Her voice was forced calm. An actress at an audition she didn't prepare for. "Hey, this isn't funny. I just got back and my key isn't working. I'm outside. Call me, please." She didn't say what she saw. She didn't mention the boxes. She was still trying to pretend it wasn't real. I didn't answer. Instead, I watched the ring cam footage from my condo across town. Saw her pace. Saw her check the lock again. Saw her step back and look at the house like it had betrayed her. She tried to open the mailbox. Locked. She tried calling again. Nothing. She finally sat down on the top step, like a child who'd been told the party was over but refused to leave. That's when she noticed the mug. It was sitting neatly in the top box, wrapped in a dish towel. Her favorite one. The one she used every morning for the last 6 years. She reached for it with both hands. Just stared at it. Noticed the faint crack down the side. The one I never glued. That's when she understood. This wasn't a fight. This was a closing scene. And she didn't get to rewrite it. She didn't open the envelope right away. She just sat there on the porch steps, fingers curled around it like it might explode. The silence was doing something to her. It wasn't just quiet, it was intentional. The kind of silence that says, "I've already said everything I needed to." Eventually, curiosity or panic won. She peeled the flap open, pulled out the papers and started reading. Page 1 was simple. A notarized declaration of separation. Nothing dramatic. No flowery language. Just facts, bullet-pointed like a memo. Her name. My name. The date. A line stating verbal mutual consent to temporary marital separation was granted by both parties on Thursday's date, as evidenced by confirmed communication and subsequent travel. The language was clinical, surgical. Then her eyes hit the signature. Her signature. The notary stamp was dated 11 months earlier. A quiet Tuesday. The day I told her I needed her to sign some trust revisions to finalize our refi benefits. She never read it. She was watching TV. I slid the pages across the table while she was mid-bite of her salad and said, "Just those 2 places, initials there and date here." She joked, "You could be stealing my identity right now and I wouldn't notice." I smiled and said, Exactly. She laughed. Now she wasn't laughing. Page 2. A summary of wire transfers. The kind of document a person expects to see from an accountant, not a husband. There were 5. All time-stamped between Thursday morning and Friday afternoon. The destinations were trust-protected subaccounts under my name only, already executed and cleared. The joint accounts? Closed. The IRAs? Split by legal allowance. Transferred under my custodial control pending separation. Even the emergency fund, the one we agreed to never touch, was moved. Not all of it. Just the part she assumed would always be there, just in case she ever needed to run. Page 3 was the property title. It had been in the trust for years. But what she never noticed, what she never cared to notice, was that the trust had been quietly amended last year. I moved it from joint revocable to individual survivorship under a financial event clause. The event? Her verbal consent to temporary separation. She gave it cheerfully even. I had it recorded. It was attached as a transcript. Her voice, clear as glass. I just need a weekend to myself. A little reset. Just me. Alone. That's all I needed. Page 4 was shorter. A single sentence about the dog. She always called the dog our girl. Like we were co-parenting a fur baby. But the microchip registration and vet records now listed me as sole owner. That had been processed Thursday at noon. I even uploaded her signature from the adoption paperwork. She had signed me as the primary back then because you'll be doing all the vet visits anyway. She wasn't wrong. Page 5 was stapled behind a small post-it note that simply said, "Read this one twice." It was the trust amendment. The one she signed without looking. The one I told her was just updated language the lender needed. It wasn't. It was everything. The clause that gave me full transfer rights over property held in trust if verbal or written separation was initiated by either party and confirmed by behavior or absence for 72 hours. The clause that let me consolidate funds for preservation of estate value under emotionally adverse circumstances. And then came the last page. Not legalese. Just a note. Typed in 12-point font. Bold. As requested, you are now free. That's when she stood up. Fast. Too fast. The paper slipped from her hand and scattered on the porch. She scrambled to grab them, tried to restack them like she could undo it if she put them back in order. Her breathing changed. It wasn't just rapid, it was disoriented. The way someone breathes when the world isn't breaking. It's just revealing the cracks that were there all along. She pulled out her phone. Called again. Voicemail. This time, her voice cracked halfway through. Please, what is this? I don't understand. I didn't say I wanted. Just call me. Okay? She didn't cry yet. Not real tears. She still thought this was a scare tactic. Still believed that if she said the right words, pushed the right button, the door would open and we'd go back to Pancake Saturdays and her laughing at my playlist choices. She sat again. This time not as a woman scorned, but as someone slowly realizing the stage had been cleared and she wasn't in the final act. She was the ghost in the last scene. I watched from my condo security app as she flipped back to the signature. Her own. Dated and stamped. Proof that this wasn't something I did to her. It was something she gave me permission to do. And that's what broke her. She was still clutching the envelope when she pulled into Claire and Mitch's driveway. Headlights off, hair a mess, one shoe missing because she'd kicked it off in the Uber without thinking. The boxes were still in the trunk. She didn't even shut the door when she ran up the steps and pounded on their front door like it was life or death. Claire opened it, wearing pajama pants and holding a mug with steam rising from it. Her expression changed the second she saw Kara's face. Wide-eyed, red-blotched, feral with disbelief. He kicked me out, Kara snapped, voice hoarse. He boxed up everything, changed the locks. He transferred the accounts. He had papers, legal papers. Claire stepped back, letting her in. Quiet. A pause. Not a gasp. Not outrage. Not the shared fury Kara had counted on. Just hesitation. Kara stormed into the kitchen, ranting with a kind of performative disbelief. Loud enough to make it clear she wasn't asking for comfort. She was demanding it. And he did it so calmly, like he's been waiting to do this. He had it all planned. The accounts. The trust. He used that refinance crap I signed. Can you believe that? Who the hell does that? Claire didn't say anything. Kara stopped pacing. Turned. Claire. That's when Claire spoke. He told me weeks ago. The sentence didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded tired. Kara blinked. What? He told me what he was going to do. After you mentioned the hall pass the first time. Silence. Not the stunned, theatrical kind. The kind that hurts. You knew. Kara's voice cracked open. Claire nodded slowly. Yeah, I knew. Kara's eyes darted around, looking for something to anchor to. A chair. A mug. A memory. So what, you just didn't say anything? Claire placed the mug on the counter. He asked me not to interfere. Said he wasn't looking for drama. Just clarity. Kara's laugh came out wrong. More of a bark. Wow, so you're on his side now. Claire tilted her head. It's not about sides, Kara. It's about patterns. You've been cruel to him in 1,000 small ways. And now that he's finally called your bluff, you're shocked. Kara took a step back. Excuse me? Just then, Mitch walked in from the hallway. He had headphones slung around his neck and looked like he'd been watching something on his tablet. He glanced between the two women. Everything okay? Claire turned to him. She just found out. Mitch didn't ask what that meant. He just sighed. Then he looked at Kara. You joked about the hall pass in front of our kids. Remember that? Kara scoffed. That was a joke. Not to them, it wasn't. Our oldest asked me if Mr. Thomas was still your husband after you laughed about getting some strange on the side. You laughed. At a dinner table. I was kidding. You were degrading him. That one hit. Not deep enough to draw blood, but enough to sting. Claire stepped forward. Her voice was calm, controlled. The way people speak when they're about to say something final. We didn't say anything because, frankly, we didn't think you'd hear it. You don't listen, Kara. You assume people are just props in your stage play. You perform outrage, you flirt with chaos, and you treat kindness like background noise. He didn't yell. He didn't humiliate you. He just packed up and left your lines on the floor. Kara was shaking now. Not from cold, but from the slow realization that the room she had stormed into wasn't hers. I was supposed to be your friend, she whispered. Claire folded her arms. You were. And now what, you're done? No, Claire said. He was. Kara looked at Mitch, desperate. Do you even care that he used me? Lied to me? Mitch shrugged. Honestly, I think he finally told the truth. You just never believed he was capable of doing anything without you. She stood there for a few seconds, like maybe they'd take it back. Maybe someone would hand her a blanket and let her cry on the couch and say, he's a monster and you deserve better. But no one moved. No one offered her tea, or a chair, or a hug. She was a guest in the house of people who no longer saw her as someone worth rescuing. So she turned, stormed back out, didn't even bother shutting the door behind her. Her heel caught the edge of the steps and she nearly stumbled. She heard Mitch say from the kitchen, let it go. Claire didn't even come to the door. As Kara climbed into her car, the boxes shifted in the trunk, reminding her what had followed her here, what she dragged with her like luggage made of decisions. She had always told herself that, if things ever got rough, she had people. Allies. The girls. The crew. Claire. Now, nothing. Not even one person to text. She drove off into the night with her phone on silent and no idea where to go next. Betrayed by the man she once called safe. And now, betrayed by the friends who had finally seen her clearly. Monday morning hit her like a hangover, except there was no wine, no laughter, and no memory of a good time. Just the metallic aftertaste of defeat sitting on her tongue. She showed up to work 43 minutes late. Hair pulled into a bun that still held the creases from the scrunchie she slept in. No makeup. Sunglasses indoors. Hoodie instead of her usual pencil skirt and blazer combo. She looked less like a marketing executive and more like someone who had slept in her car. The receptionist didn't greet her. That was new. Not rude, just removed. Like someone unplugged the welcome routine. She scanned her badge and walked toward the elevators. One opened, but no one inside stepped aside. She took the stairs. Her office sat on the 4th floor. Open plan, glass cubicles, little nameplates with company logos next to LinkedIn quotes printed in white script. Hustle beats talent, when talent doesn't hustle. The kind of place that worshipped hustle, but only if you looked good doing it. As she walked past the digital display board in the lobby, she noticed something new on the bottom ticker. Sponsored by Greer and Dawson Family Law Group. Know your rights before saying yes to a hall pass. Passed by again. She blinked, kept walking. Inside the bullpen, 2 coworkers glanced up. One nudged the other. The whisper wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. That rapid, short burst of wait till I tell you energy. Kara forced a smile. Good morning. They murmured something in return. One looked at her shoes. The other looked past her. She entered her office and dropped her bag on the chair. It was still early. She had time to regroup, recover, build a narrative. That was her specialty, after all, controlling the story. Reputation management was something she taught. There had to be a way to spin this. Make herself the victim. Make him the manipulator. She just needed the right framing. She opened her email. There, in her inbox, was the Monday internal newsletter. Subject line: This week at Loxon Plus Vale HQ. She clicked, and there it was again. Thinking of giving your spouse a hall pass? You might be handing them the keys to everything. It was a clickable banner ad. Gold font. Discreet. Clean. Beneath it, the logo for Greer and Dawson Family Law Group. Her hand froze on the mouse. No way. She clicked through. The ad led to a landing page outlining common pitfalls of casual marital agreements. It mentioned trust loopholes, verbal consent clauses, examples of couples who agreed to temporary separations only to find themselves legally, and financially, divorced before they ever got back home. There was even a testimonial quote: "I didn't even realize I'd signed away the house. I just wanted a weekend to myself." Her stomach turned. The firm had clearly paid for a building-wide newsletter ad, which meant it wasn't just her team who'd seen it. Everyone had. She bolted from her chair, stormed down the hallway, and pushed into the break room. That's when she saw it. The flyer, taped right above the fridge. Laminated. Big white letters on a navy blue background. Know your legal rights before giving a hall pass. They might take more than your heart. Below that, a QR code. A smirking logo. The slogan: Separation starts before goodbye. There was a red arrow drawn in Sharpie next to it. Not part of the ad. Someone had added it. Above the arrow, "At Kara?" Written in someone's handwriting. She ripped it down. Her hands were shaking now. She spun around to see if anyone was watching. And of course they were. Not openly. Not directly. But from corners, doorways, desk chairs just slightly turned. The worst part? No one was laughing. They weren't mocking her. They were pitying her. And in her office culture, pity was the social death penalty. She walked back to her office and slammed the door. Tried to breathe. Tried to focus. Tried to remember who she used to be before this all unraveled. But the image of that flyer wouldn't leave her. She knew exactly who placed the ad. She even remembered the law firm. I'd mentioned them years ago during an offhand conversation about prenups. She dismissed the topic entirely. "We're not that kind of couple," she said. "You'd never do something that cold." Turns out, cold is just what it feels like when someone stops playing your game and starts playing for keeps. He didn't scream. He didn't smear her name. He bought ad space. Targeted. Surgical. Precise. And he let gravity do the rest. She stared at her screen and realized that in trying to prove she still had power, she'd handed him all of it. Now, even the coffee room had turned against her. It wasn't until Tuesday afternoon that her lawyer finally called her back. And even then, the greeting didn't sound like sympathy. "Hi, Kara. Got a minute?" She was pacing in the corridor behind the office's loading dock. Phone in one hand, nicotine gum in the other. She hadn't touched a cigarette in years, but her jaw was grinding like she'd just survived a car crash. "Tell me you found something," she said, voice raw. There was a pause. Not a long one. Just enough to tell her that whatever came next was going to be bad. "I've reviewed the trust revisions you both signed last November," the lawyer said carefully. "The version you forwarded to me matches what he filed. It was properly notarized, time-stamped, and, unfortunately, fully enforceable." She felt her knees loosen, sat down hard on the low concrete ledge. "What does that even mean?" "It means," he continued, "you signed away co-ownership of the property. The revision shifted the trust from joint survivorship to primary custodial ownership in the event of separation. He made himself custodian, which, legally, makes him the sole trustee of the house, the investments held inside the trust, and any income generated from trust-owned property." Her jaw dropped. "But I didn't mean it like that. I thought it was refinancing paperwork." "It was refinancing paperwork," he said, "but it was bundled with a trust adjustment, and you initialed every page, including the separation trigger clause." "The what?" "Clause 14, subsection C. It states, if either party expresses verbal or written intent to separate and is absent from the marital residence for more than 48 hours, this shall constitute a behavioral separation event." She blinked. "Wait, Are you telling me that me going to a spa for 3 days triggered this whole thing? Well, the lawyer said slowly, technically no. You saying you needed space and that you were going solo for clarity is what triggered it. The 72-hour absence just sealed it. This is insane, she whispered. This is a trick. I didn't understand what I was signing. Intent doesn't matter, he said, tone now clipped. Signature does. Her throat clenched. She gripped her phone tighter, like maybe she could squeeze the answers out of it. So what do I do now? Can I contest it? You can try, he said. But unless you're going to claim coercion, which you'd have to prove, and unless you can prove financial manipulation, which, based on what I've seen, you can't, then it's a dead end. You signed. You left. You said the words. You triggered it. Legally? He played it cleaner than most litigators I know. She couldn't speak. Her heart was thudding in her ears. I'll still draft a response, he added. But if you want real advice, don't challenge it publicly. He hasn't humiliated you yet. You might want to keep it that way. The call ended, and for the first time since she'd gotten home Sunday night, Kara felt the actual weight of it. Not the shock, not the embarrassment, but the collapse. Because now it was real. Now it wasn't just boxes on the porch or a locked front door or some smug flyer in the break room. Now it was the law. And the law didn't care that she thought she was making a joke. The law didn't care that she meant it just for the weekend. The law didn't give a damn that she believed he'd always be the one waiting at the window, watching for her to come back. It just followed the ink. The next time she checked her email, there was already a reply from the notary service confirming the timestamp and witness on the original trust amendment. She read the message 3 times and still couldn't believe that she was the one who had handed him the knife. The truth didn't care if you laughed when you handed it over. It just cut when it was ready. And now, she was bleeding. Quietly, completely, and legally irrevocably. It hit her phone like any other notification, innocuous, even flattering. You were tagged in a photo. She almost didn't open it. She was curled up on the corner of Claire's old guest bed, now borrowed on an extended, silent truce, wearing a hoodie that didn't smell like her and socks with a hole in the toe. Her eyes were puffy, makeup-free, and she just finished retyping a draft email to her boss for the 3rd time, trying to spin her temporary leave as something unrelated to anything circulating in whispers around the office. But her finger hovered, then tapped. And there it was. The photo. A group shot. Black backdrop. Brushed chrome lettering behind them. Summit East Private Equity Leadership Forum. The kind of event that catered to men in charcoal suits and women who ran strategy for breakfast and mergers by lunch. There, in the middle of it all, was him, her ex-husband, standing straight, not stiff, composed, confident, shoulders relaxed, one hand in his pocket, the other loosely holding a folded program. He was smiling, not politely, not nervously, actually smiling, the kind of smile that hadn't touched his face in years. His hair looked trimmed, a bit longer on top than usual. Beard gone, skin clearer. He looked 10 years younger. He looked free. But that wasn't the worst part. To his left stood a woman, early 30s, minimalist black blazer, bold earrings, burgundy heels, easy posture, her arm casually tucked behind his back, just enough to suggest familiarity without shouting it. And Kara recognized her immediately. Her thumb froze on the screen. She tapped the photo, zoomed in, scanned again. No doubt. It was Morgan Fields, the same Morgan who used to run regional accounts at a partner firm. The same Morgan who had presented that aggressive growth pitch during their Denver trip 3 years ago. The same Morgan her husband had once, after a few glasses of wine, called impressive. Kara remembered the moment like it was sealed in amber. They'd been sitting at their kitchen island. Late night, laptops open, both pretending to work while dinner cooled on the stove. He'd forwarded her Morgan's pitch deck and said, "You should see this. Cleanest growth logic I've seen in a while." She hadn't even looked up. Just muttered, "She's too young for you." He didn't respond. She remembered him going quiet for a long time after that. Not sulking, just folding into himself. At the time, she took it as confirmation. He knew she was right. He always did. She had no idea that silence wasn't agreement. It was withdrawal. She scrolled through their old messages now, pulling up the thread where he'd shared Morgan's LinkedIn link with the caption, "Watch this one. She'll run a firm by 40. Her reply had been 2 emojis. Face with rolling eyes, face with rolling eyes. Now she clicked Morgan's profile again. Partner, Client Growth Strategy, Aureus Capital. Keynote. Rebuilding Trust Through Data and Action. Featured in Bloomberg. Podcast host. MIT Sloan. Every line hit like a slap. And there, under the alumni group's photo, the caption sealed it. Power couples of PE Summit East. Catch these two during Thursday's fireside chat. Scaling without egos. Power couple. She dropped the phone on the bed. It bounced once, then landed screen up, like even the damn device wanted her to keep looking. For a minute, she sat there motionless. Then she reached for her laptop, opened their old vacation folder, and stared at the photos from their anniversary trip to Charleston. Her husband looked different then. Tired behind the eyes, wrinkles heavier, smile tighter, like he was bracing for something that never arrived. She wondered how many nights he'd stayed up, researching trust clauses and loopholes while she scrolled Instagram next to him. How many days he'd let her laugh at him, cut him down in front of friends, twist the knife with a smile. Just waiting. Waiting for her to let him go. And when she finally did, with that stupid wink and the suitcase packed beneath her yoga gear, he didn't slam the door. He just opened it and stepped into the version of himself she never bothered to see. She picked up the phone again, looked at the picture once more. Morgan looked like the kind of woman who listened, who took you seriously, who saw ambition and didn't mock it, who didn't say things like, "Are you really going to wear that to the dinner?" She was the kind of woman who didn't smirk at men still figuring things out. She was the woman Kara had once dismissed without a thought. And now, she was the woman who replaced her. She didn't text before she arrived, didn't call. She just showed up, hair done for the first time in days, makeup stiff on her skin like armor, blouse still creased from where it had hung unworn in the back of Claire's coat closet. She even wore heels. 3 inches of stubborn optimism clacking against the polished concrete floors of the new high-rise where he now lived. The front desk receptionist didn't look up when she walked in. "I'm here to see Thomas Miller," she said, confident. Rehearsed. The receptionist raised one eyebrow. "Is he expecting you?" "We were married for 17 years," she said. Too fast. The woman barely blinked. "And yet, I still need his permission to let you up." Kara clenched her jaw. "Just call him. Tell him it's Kara." The receptionist tapped something into her screen, picked up the phone. A short pause. She looked up again. "He'll meet you in the lobby. 5 minutes." Kara nodded, trying to mask her racing pulse. She sat on one of the angular waiting chairs near the entryway wall. Too modern, too white. The cushions didn't give. There was a table with neatly arranged magazines, none of them the kind she used to read. The building was quiet in the way expensive places always are. No kids, no chaos, just controlled breathing and soft jazz from hidden speakers. When the elevator finally opened, he stepped out like a stranger. Slim fit slacks, gray sweater, clean shave, watch she didn't recognize. Not a single sign of hesitation. He saw her, gave the smallest nod, and walked over. Stopped 3 feet away, close enough to hear, far enough to maintain jurisdiction. She stood up slowly, tried to read his face. Nothing. "Thank you for coming down," she said. He nodded once. "You asked." That landed harder than it should have. I needed to see you," she said. "Face to face." "You are." Silence stretched between them. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper, creased, soft at the edges. A printout of the trust amendment. She held it up like it was a shared crime. "I didn't mean to hurt you." He looked at it, then at her. Calm, flat. "I know," he said. "You just didn't care if you did." That made her flinch. Her voice cracked. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. I thought." "What?" he said gently. "That I'd wait." "No, she stammered. "I thought you'd fight for us." He smiled. "But it wasn't cruel. Just tired." "I did," he said. 17 years ago, when you used to cancel my ideas with eye rolls. When you told your friends I was safe but dull. When you treated kindness like it was something I owed you. That was me fighting. Showing up. Swallowing pride." She stepped forward. "That's not fair." He raised a hand, not in warning but as a seal. "Enough." "No," he said. "It's not about fair anymore." Her eyes started to water. She swallowed hard. "I made mistakes." "So did I," he said. "I stayed too long." She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we fix it?" He was quiet, not to hurt her, but because he was choosing his words with precision. "You know what fixing would have looked like?" he asked. "Not a big gesture. Just a moment, one moment where I felt like I mattered. A hand on my shoulder. A real apology. A day where you didn't make me feel like an obligation in khakis. Tears slipped down her cheek. I never wanted to lose you, she said. I know, he said. You just thought I'd never leave. She blinked hard, trying to push everything back. Are you seeing her? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Kara nodded slowly. Is she better than me? He shrugged. She sees me. That answer felt heavier than any comparison could. She reached into her purse again, this time for a key. The old one. She held it out, palm up, like an offering. He didn't take it. I changed the locks, he said. I know, she whispered. I just thought. He didn't respond. She took a breath. What happens now? He looked at her with the same eyes that once memorized every detail of her face. Now he just said, nothing. There's no next act. She looked around the lobby, at the perfectly controlled environment. At the man she never expected to lose. At the version of him that existed without her. Unapologetic, untethered, complete. He glanced toward the elevator, then back at her. I'll walk you out. She hesitated. Can we talk again? Just once more. This was once more, he said. The doors slid open again behind him. He didn't wait. She stood alone in a lobby that didn't know her name, and realized, for the first time, she wasn't being punished. She was being removed. The house looked almost the same if you squinted. Same white trim, same wind chimes clinking on the porch like always. Same dogwood tree leaning slightly to the left from last year's storm. The grass was freshly mowed, edges trimmed, porch swept clean, everything in its place, except her. Her hands gripped the steering wheel a moment longer than necessary before she shut the engine off. She wasn't sure what she expected, but some part of her still thought maybe the porch light would flicker on. Maybe he'd be inside, reading in that battered leather chair she always hated. Maybe there'd be a second chance hidden somewhere in the silence. It had been 5 days since the last time she saw him in the lobby. 5 days since he looked her dead in the eye and walked away like she was no more than a meeting he was late for. 5 days to realize that no one was coming to rescue her. Not Claire. Not the lawyer. Not even time. She stepped out of the car, heels crunching against the driveway gravel. A new car, sleek, unfamiliar, was parked where hers used to be. That hurt in a way she didn't expect. He hadn't just erased her. He'd replaced her in the geometry of the space. She walked slowly up the path, noting the trimmed hedges, the way the paint on the porch railing had been touched up. The welcome mat had changed too. Gone was the kitschy home is where the wine is rug she'd insisted on. Now it just said, no soliciting. She stopped in front of the door, tried the knob. Still locked. Of course it was. She bit her lip, stepped back, scanned the porch for any sign of something. Forgiveness. Nostalgia. Maybe just a moment of weakness on his part. But there was nothing sentimental here. No half-empty coffee mugs left outside. No shoes he forgot to bring in. No traces of the man who used to trip over her garden boots and laugh it off. Then she noticed the mailbox. Its new lock gleamed in the sunlight. She hadn't noticed it before. But taped to the side was something small, one last offering, if you could even call it that. A key. Silver. Standard. Taped above it, a single folded piece of paper. No envelope. No salutation. Just a note. She peeled the tape off slowly and opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, his. Even clean, confident. You asked for a weekend. This one's yours. After that, don't come back. She stared at it. Then read it again. And again. She ran her fingers over the key like it might unlock more than a door. Like it might rewind the clock. Take her back to Saturday mornings with pancakes and him quietly folding laundry while she complained about how boring their life had become. But this wasn't a rewind. This was a receipt. She had asked for space. For a taste of something outside the walls of loyalty. A hall pass, she said, with a wink. Now she had a key to a house that no longer had her name on it. She walked up the steps. Inserted the key. The lock turned. The door creaked open. The air smelled different, cleaner, colder. Everything inside was organized, deliberate, redesigned. No traces of her remained. The art she once hung had been replaced. The photo wall, once filled with pictures of holidays, family dinners, anniversaries, was now bare. In its place, a single framed quote on the wall. If you don't know what you had until it's gone, maybe you never deserved it. She stood in the entryway and listened to the silence. to her heartbeat, to the unmistakable feeling of being somewhere you used to belong, and realizing the door didn't swing both ways anymore. She left the key on the table, stepped outside, closed the door behind her, and this time she didn't try to open it again.